A pleasant evening to everyone. Good evening. We're glad that we are here again to worship God together with our brethren and to honor Him and thank Him for the things that He has done in our midst. Last December, one morning I woke up after I prepared myself. I went out of the room and then proceeded to the fridge. I opened it and checked some food that I could eat for our breakfast. And so I looked inside the fridge and I saw a big bowl of pasta. And so I brought it out of the fridge. And then I noticed that there were small containers, plastic containers, na may ulam. I also brought it out, 3 of them. So when they were out, I said, I need to heat this in the microwave oven. So one after another, I started with a big bowl of pasta, put it inside, set a 2-minute heating, and I waited. When it alarmed already, I checked it, brought it out, but it was still cold. So I put it back and then input 4-minute heating. And I waited and it was okay after 4 minutes. It was followed by the smaller container, ulam yung laman nun. So I put it with a 2-minute timer na set. And then I brought it out, it's already okay. I put again the 3rd one. I brought it out, it's okay. And then the 4th one, I brought it inside the microwave oven. But this time, the oven does not function anymore. And so what I did, I put it out again and checked if there were some liquid that spilled from those previous containers that I put inside. And I noticed that there was no even oil, no spill, or not even a moist. It was really very dry inside. And so I said, maybe I need to unplug it and then just plug it again after which. So I unplug it, plug it in, check it in, put it on. Still, it did not work. And so this time, I didn't know what to do anymore. So I went to my wife and asked her, something is wrong with the microwave oven. And she said, what did you do? And I said, alam mo yung tawa mo pag feeling mo nagkasala ka na, parang ganun lang eh. What did you do? And I said, I just heat up those food in the fridge. And she said, really? And then she tried out it also and it didn't work. But I was observing her. She was just calm. And she said to me, you just leave it. We will try after 10 minutes. So I just left it like that. After 10 minutes, I went again, plug it in, put the food inside and then put it on. And this time it worked. It was a big sigh for me. Oh, it worked. Praise God, hindi ako nagkasala. And as I was thinking about it, I said, this is a reality that we need to consider because out of that situation, my wife told me, that machine just needed to rest. And I said, if machines, whether it's digital or the old type of machine, if they need rest, how much more your body, it needs to rest also. No wonder, when you look at the scriptures, even in both in the Old and New Testament, the word Sabbath is mentioned. And when you take the idea of Sabbath, it literally means stop or rest. Because it is a necessity for our bodies to really consider rest. So let us look at the scriptures this evening. And we would be looking at an account where Jesus and His disciples had an encounter again with the Pharisees. And they discussed something that is closely related or directly related to the issue on the Sabbath. Mark chapter 2 verses 23 to chapter 3 verse 6. Mark chapter 2 verse 23 up to chapter 3 verse 6. It says here from the NASB. And it happened that He was passing through the grain fields on the Sabbath, and His disciples began to make their way along while picking the heads of grain. The Pharisees were saying to Him, look, why are they doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath? And He said to them, have you never read what David did when he was in need, and he and his companions became hungry? How he entered the house of God in the time of Abiathar, the high priest, and ate the consecrated bread, which is not lawful for anyone to eat except the priest. And he also gave it to those who were with him. Jesus said to them, The Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. Chapter 3, verse 1. He entered again into a synagogue, and a man there was whose hand was withered. They were watching him to see if he would heal him on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse him. He said to them with the withered hand, the man with the withered hand, "Get up and come forward." And he said to them, "Is it lawful to do good or to do harm on the Sabbath, to save life or to kill?" But they kept silent. After looking around at them with anger, grieved at the hardness of their heart, he said to them, to the man, "Stretch out your hand." And he stretched it out, and his hand was restored. The Pharisees went out and immediately began conspiring with the Herodians against him as to how they might destroy him, the Lord Jesus Christ. May the good Lord bless the reading of His word. Now this time, as the narrative would tell us, they were just walking. By the way, take note that in the earlier part, in chapter 2, verses 23 onwards, you can see that the Pharisees accused the disciples of Jesus. Okay? But in chapter 3, verse 1 to 6, they accused Jesus. So at the earlier part of the narrative, they were accusing the disciples of Jesus, but in chapter 3, they directly accused Jesus of doing something that is unlawful during the Sabbath. They were just walking along the field. And while they were walking, probably they were also hungry. Probably. I said that because the text does not say that. However, the illustration that Jesus Christ used was about David and his people who were hungry during the Old Testament time. So that probably gives us a setting and understanding that the disciples were also hungry while they were walking on the field. So they were walking, and there were grains, heads of grains that were already above the ground, and they could just pick it while they were walking. And the question of the Pharisees, or the accusation was, why were they doing something that is unlawful? Is it really unlawful for them to pick the heads of the grain? The answer to that question is no. Look at Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 25. God Himself expressed that to His people, that whenever you walk on the fields with grain already, you can actually pick the heads of grain, and you can actually eat them. The only thing that you should not do is you go there in the field and bring your sickle and begin harvesting all those crops. That's not good already. But if you just pass by and pick some of the grains, it's okay. So when you now examine what the disciples did here, they did not have a sickle on their hands. They did not bring any tool for harvest. What were they doing is just picking the grains while they were walking, and probably eating some of those that they pick already. So when you ask the question, was it really unlawful to do that? It was not. But the accusation of the Pharisees is direct violation, to the Sabbath. And here is their statement. Look, why are they doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath? Is it really unlawful to do such a thing in the Sabbath? When they said that, they were looking at it from the perspective of Exodus chapter 20, verse 10, where God Himself told His people that during the Sabbath, because I ordained it as a holy day within the week, you should not do any work. So they are now defining the picking of grain as work. But actually, if you think about it, it was not work. So the accusation of the Pharisees that is directly violating the Sabbath is not actually a violation. Why were they doing that? Because this is how they perceive it. The Pharisees look at the sabbatical law, or the order of the observance of the Sabbath, as a straight jacket. Are you familiar with a straight jacket? Those of you who are working in a mental hospital, or those who have visited mental hospital, individuals who are really wild and violent, they let the people wear straight jacket. Yung parang damit na ang kanyang sa braso diretso nakadikit dito, nakaganon lang yung tao. If you are wearing a straight jacket, you cannot move your hands. You're just doing like this. Okay? The Pharisees, when they look at those laws in the Old Testament, particularly in this context about the Sabbath, they were thinking of it like a straight jacket, something that binds you, something that holds you. But here comes the Lord Jesus Christ looking at it in a different perspective. Because the Lord was looking at it not on the law by itself, but He began looking on the wisdom behind the law. Why was the law given? And that is why when you look at His statement following that line, when the Pharisees asked Him, He explained to them, He told them a story about David in the Old Testament, and He continued with a statement that goes like this: the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. What was He talking about here? The point that He was driving out to these Pharisees and even to His disciples was this: God ordained Sabbath so that you, human beings, will benefit from it. When did God ordain the Sabbath? You go back to the book of Genesis chapter 2 verse 1. That was the very first time that word Sabbath was mentioned. Why? What happened back then? On the first 6 days, we will not discuss here whether the day there is really actually a 24-hour day or it was a long period of time. We will not discuss it at this moment, but the Bible says on the earlier days, 6 days, God made everything that you can see around you. He made everything. But on the seventh day, He observed Sabbath. He rested. He stopped from doing those things that He did in the earlier days. So the word Sabbath really came first in Genesis chapter 2, verse 1. And actually, when He said that, there was no prohibition of not working. Do not work. He did not say that. He just said, you have to observe it. And later, when the Mosaic law was given, it was then when it became very clear, stipulated that you should not work during the Sabbath. And we should take note that the idea really of God in giving the Sabbath to His people is that they would benefit from it. Not that it would bind them like they are in bondage. That is why when you look at Deuteronomy chapter 5 verse 15, open your Bibles in that passage, where God said, I just brought you out of Egypt. I just freed you from the Egyptian bondage, and now you are about to enter the land. Now you are here in the promise that I have given to you. I don't like you to be enslaved again, to work. But what I want you to experience is you would experience freedom, you would experience rest from that bondage. So that actually observance of the Sabbath in Deuteronomy chapter 5 has something to do with not letting His people experience bondage again. And here comes the Pharisees understanding the law as a bondage that would bind them. So are you seeing now the difference on how the Pharisees look at it and how Jesus understood about it? Because Jesus really looked at it not just by the law itself, but He understands the reason for giving the law. That's why He said, Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. In other words, the intention is that human beings would benefit from it. How will man benefit from the Sabbath? How will we benefit from the Sabbath? If we observe it. If I was living in those days among the Israelites and I would observe Sabbath, it's going to affect everything and every person around me. Why? I am going to work from the first day of the week to the sixth. Because I am working, all the people surrounding me would also be working. All those individuals who are serving me would also work. The land that I would till would also be working. The animals that I use to plow the land or even to do things that are necessary in my day-to-day activities, they would also work. So the animals, the ground, the plants, and every person around me is going to work. But here comes the seventh day. It's the Sabbath. I am going to take rest. I am going to stop. And because I will stop, the people surrounding me, my servants, would also stop. And because my servants would rest, the animals would also stop. They would also rest. And because the animals would rest, even the ground is going to rest. So it affects everything surrounding the person observing Sabbath. And that is why it is really very important to understand this. Because when you look behind it, the very wisdom of Sabbath actually is rest and restoration. Because once you stop doing your activities, you give your body the chance to take a rest and be restored. That is why you need rest. There is one situation that I read. According to a Greek legend, in ancient Athens, a man noticed the great storyteller Aesop playing childish games with some little boys. He laughed and jeered at Aesop, asking him why he wasted his time in such frivolous activity. So nakita niya si Aesop playing and laughing with the kids. And he jeered at him and said, why is this person laughing with these kids? What a waste of time. And when he asked him, Aesop said, bro, I'm just relaxing. And what this guy did, Aesop responded by picking up a bow, loosening its string, and placing it on the ground. A bow, yung ginagamit natin pang ng arrow. Then he said to the critical Athenian, to this man, now, since I have placed down this bow, which is unstrung, I want you to tell me the point of it. I want you to tell me the answer to this riddle. And this Athenian was so curious about the answer of that riddle. And so he tried to think and figure it out, but he could not give any answer. And so Aesop said, he explained, if you keep a bow, listen to this, if you keep a bow always bent, it will break eventually. If you keep a bow, because yung bow, nakaganon yung shape niya, it's because of the string that holds it. Okay? Sabi ni Aesop, if you keep a bow always bent, it will break eventually. But if you let it go slack, it will be more fit for use when you want it. And that's actually a reality that you can observe in your body. If you just keep on pushing your body to the fullest potential every day, that you exhaust your strength with your work every day, and you don't take some time to rest, eventually your body would break down. It's a reality that you and I would face in this life. Some people would say, Pastor, I am still young. Yes, you are still young, but you will never be forever young. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, your body would be different already. And if you abuse your body at this stage, because you are still young, you abuse it by not giving and taking proper rest. When you get old, I tell you, sa Bisaya pa, maningil ra ba ng lawas? And I think there is really a wisdom behind the Sabbath. That's why we need to rest. Especially sleeping during the night. Now, I consulted some medical experts, and I came across with Dr. Wales' advice when she was interviewed by the researcher of the Cleveland Clinic. And she was asked, how many hours should a person sleep every day, especially during the night? And here was a chart that she gave to that person, to the researcher. If you are an older adult, 65 years and above of age, you need to sleep 7 to 8 hours a day. Take note of that. If you are an adult, 26 to 64-year-old, you need to take 7 to 9 hours of sleep in a day. Young adults, 18 to 25. I know there are many of you who belong to this category, 18 to 25. If you belong to that, you need to sleep 7 to 9 hours a day. Now, who are these people, 18 to 25? Many of you are students, and some are workers or businessmen, young employees, okay? But many of you sleep very late during the night, or if not late during the night, you sleep early in the morning. Is it right? I can see your face smiling. And what makes you sleep very late? What lets you stay up even in the middle of the night? Your gadgets. You don't sleep immediately because you are so engrossed with the social media on your gadgets. You stay so late, and on the following day at 7 o'clock, you have a work. If you have a work at 7, you need to shut off your cell phone at 10 in the evening and put your eyes to sleep. Because if you won't do that, you count. You sleep at 12 o'clock, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7 o'clock is your work time. 6, you need to wake up. You brush your teeth, you eat, you prepare yourself, you go to work. By 6:45 or even 5 minutes to 7, you'll be in the office already or in your field. How many hours did you sleep? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours only. But some of us sleep even 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. It's not a good steward. I can see you smiling. If you belong to this category, teenagers, 14 to 17, high schoolers, how many hours do you sleep during the night? Some of you, I believe, are also there using your phone. Using your tablets in the middle of the night. Mas malakas kasi ang internet, pastor. But that's a reality. If you do that, you are killing yourself. Preschool, school-age children, 3 to 5, 6 to 13, you need 9 to 11 or 10 to 13 hours sleep every day. Listen to these parents. If you have a toddler, if you have a preschool, if you have a school-age children, and you let them stay awake even during the night until midnight, you are actually not helping your children, you are killing them. That's a reality. And experts would tell us that this is not really good. We are also learning on this matter. My wife and I are also parents. And sometimes we really have to wrestle with our kids. And from time to time, I would tell my wife, if they would cry, you just let them cry. Because if they cry, sooner or later they'll sleep. So just let them cry. Because if we just let them do that, we are actually destroying them. Infants 4 to 11 months, newborns 0 to 3 months, still they need sleep and more hours of sleep. And this is the advice of the medical doctor. And at the same time, the advice of God. The advice of God is stop, take proper rest. You see the similar advice here. You need to take proper rest. And who is telling that to us? God. Now listen. If you buy an appliances, or even if you buy a brand new car, with it you will get a manual. When you read the manual, you would be able to see there how it's gonna be used and what are the limitations of that unit that you bought. That's what you would read from the manual actually. Okay? And it would tell you the limitations of the unit. When you look at the scriptures, God is giving us these parameters. He's giving us these regulations. Why? Because He knows the limitation of our body. Who gave the limitation or who stated the limitations in the manual? The manufacturer. Sino ba sila para magbigay ng limitation? Sila lang naman ang gumawa ng unit na binili mo. Sa atin, sa body natin, who made us? It's God who made us. He knows the limit of our body. He knows the limit of your kidney. He knows the limit of your liver. He knows the limit of your heart. He knows the limit of your brain. He knows the limit of your eyes. He knows the limit of every organ we have. That is why He is prescribing proper rest for every one of us. Are you seeing the point here? We need to rest. Proper rest. Don't get me wrong here. I am not advising you to sleep the whole day. That's laziness. And the Bible also has a different advice for people who sleep the whole day. Sabi ng Bible, the Bible is very simple in its advice for the lazy people. Sabi ng Bible, do not let the lazy eat. A very simple advice for the lazy people. So I want us to understand that the Bible is not advocating laziness. What the Bible is telling us is that we need to take a proper rest because we have our limitations in this physical body that we have. Okay? Are you following me? Okay, I can see you saying yes. So we'll proceed now. What would happen if you would not take the proper rest? What would happen if you would violate God's intention for your body? Here are some short-term effects. Number one, lack of alertness. In our term, in Visayan or in Tagalog, masakit to. Sa English, lack of alertness. Sa Bisaya, mahimo kang tanga-tanga. Kaya sa office, if somebody would give you an instruction and you don't follow it properly because you lack sleep, the person would tell you, ang tanga mo. Masakit yun. And the reason? Lack of sleep. Impaired memory. You don't easily remember. You don't easily understand. Why? Because you lack sleep. You did not take proper rest as God advised it. And then another, relationship stress. You easily get disappointed. At hindi pa nagagawa yung mistake, galit ka na agad. Why? Kulang ka ng sleep. Quality of life. No time for relaxation. No time for happy-happy. Why? Your brain does not work properly. You are not very productive. That is why you need to exert much effort in your office to finish your job. And because you need to exert much effort, longer time, then you don't have time to relax. You don't have quality of life. And here's another one, very common. Greater likelihood for car accidents. Several times already, somebody would phone me, Pastor, can you please come to the ER of this hospital? Why? Please pray for this person. And I go there, what happened? This guy met an accident. I asked the person, what happened to you? Pastor, I slept while I was driving. Buti sana, if there's a motorcycle that you can buy and just tell the motorcycle, please wake me up when we arrive already, ha? Wala namang motor na ganon. You really have to stay awake, stay alert, because you are driving. And there are many accidents taking place because the driver is drowsy, inaantok. Why? The person lacks sleep. Yun pala, in the night, gasigirag pahid sa iyang iPad, wa katulog. You see, these are short-term effects. And here are long-term effects. High blood pressure, praise God. Diabetes, heart attack, heart failure or stroke, depression. Husbands, take note of this. Lower sex drive. So husbands, you can tell your wife, if I sleep, don't wake me up, or else you will not enjoy. And then, I am saying husbands only because you should not take sexual relationship with a person outside of marriage. It should be within marriage. And then lastly, physical appearance. Take note of these girls, ladies. Makaapekto sa imong kagwapa. If you lack sleep, it would affect your physical appearance. Bisag unsaon nimo gnudnud og makeup, you would tell to yourself, ganong di namang gyud ko gwapa karon. Kato di ay kay di ka matulog og sayo. Tulog ra og sayo, di ba? Ugma gwapa na dayon kag dayon. Here is a book that I recommend to you. If you have not read this, or if you like to read this book, I hope I can find a copy of this in the internet, because I was looking for this in the National Bookstore and wala siya. The title of the book is Rest, Why You Get More Done When You Work Less. It was written by Alex Hu John Kimpang. And he said in that book this statement: when we fall asleep, our bodies shift into maintenance mode and devote themselves to storing energy, fixing or replacing damaged cells, and growing, while our brains clean out toxins, process the day's experiences, and sometimes work on problems that have been occupying our waking mind. When do those things happen? When you are asleep. In other words, if you don't take proper sleep and proper rest, your body would not have a maintenance mode all throughout the 24 hours. If you do that, there is no restoration of energy. If you do that, there is no fixing and replacing of damaged cells. If you do that, there is no growing, and your brain would not have time to remove the toxins that you have acquired during the day. You see what happens when you sleep? Tell your seatmate, sleep is beneficial. Diba? And the idea behind is that you need to take some rest. You need to take some rest. Rest is a design by God. It is not something that you just do because you're so tired already, but it was designed by God Himself. That was the wisdom behind the Sabbath that was given to God's children. That's why I said the wisdom behind the Sabbath is actually rest and restoration. Because of what we see here. It's actually restoring things inside our body to a better condition. And on the following day, you'll be ready to face the challenges in your workplace and even in your school. Why? Because you have a proper rest. I remember a story. One man challenged another to an all-day wood chopping contest. The challenger worked very hard, stopping only for a brief lunch break. The other man had a leisurely lunch and took several breaks during the day. At the end of the day, the challenger was surprised and annoyed to find that the other fellow had chopped substantially more wood than he had. This guy challenged the person and told him, let's chop woods, paramihan tayo. This guy took some rest, took some time in his lunch, but this guy almost did not have any rest. At the end of the day, the guy who challenged was surprised and annoyed to find out that the other fellow had chopped substantially more wood than this challenger had. And the reason behind is this. He went to the other fellow and told him, I don't get it, he said. Every time I checked, you were taking a rest. Yet you chopped more wood than I did. And then this guy responded, but you did not notice, said the winning woodsman, that I was sharpening my axe when I sat down to rest. You did not notice. You saw me sitting down, but you did not notice that every time I rest, I sharpen my axe. And after sharpening my axe, I chop three of the big chunk of the tree already. You just chop one because your axe is dull. You did not take time to rest. And the wisdom behind that is when you rest, you're actually sharpening what God has given to you. When you rest, things that I have read to you earlier would really happen. Your body would shift into maintenance mode, devote yourselves to storing energy, fixing or replacing damaged cell, and growing out the brains, clean out toxins, process the day experiences, and sometimes work on problems that have been occupying our waking minds. That's what would happen when you sleep. It's like sharpening your axe. In other words, and study shows that people who take enough rest within the day are more productive than those ones who do not rest. That's based on research. That is why I am telling you tonight, you need to take proper rest. And if I am going to summarize everything that I have mentioned to you this evening, here is the conclusion of the message. The conclusion is the longest conclusion I have ever made in all my sermons. Read this, 1, 2, 3, there it goes. You need to rest. Click it, please. All you need to do is rest. You need to do that. Many of us would say, we'll find time to rest. I don't recommend that line. Don't say, I'll find time to rest. Because tendency is, you will never find time to rest. You make time to rest. That's God's prescription to all of us because He knows that there is limit with this body that He has given to us. Now look at your seatmate and tell that person, tomorrow is a holiday. You know what to do, right? Take some rest. It's a gift from God. Take care of your body. It's one of the most precious gifts that God has given to us. God bless you and good evening.